Information is power, I guess, unless all of your information is geared towards you thinking that everything is about you. No, not everyone is ever thinking about one person all the time at any point. It's just like, if your algorithm is giving you criticisms of yourself or adulation or praise, you're creating an ecosystem in which you're the centerpiece of the table. And I just don't think that's healthy. Like, that's not the way I want to move through the world.
Hi, besties. Taylor Swift just showed up on the internet on a podcast for the very first time. Kind of wild to think about. A woman that's this successful has never had a podcast interview in her entire career. But when you have the kind of fame that she does and the machine behind her, maybe you don't need to show who you really are on a podcast. But her boyfriend, Travis, had her on his podcast with his brother, Jason, and she debuted and discussed her brand new album that's coming out in October, on October 3rd. If you know anything about Miss Swift, she's obsessed with the number 13. So the date, October 3rd, 10 plus 3 equals 13. It also happens to coincide with Travis's birthday, which she said on the podcast was October 5th. So it felt like the perfect time to release her new album. The new album has some titles on it that could suggest that she will be discussing the drama that unfolded between her and Blake Lively. Now, she claims that this album was written and created while she was on the Eras tour. She was on the Eras tour up until the end of mid-December of 2024. Taylor revealed her track list and the cover of the album, and other information about this has been leaking. And some of the titles on this album could suggest she might be talking about Blake Lively. One entitled Ruin the Friendship, which could be about a friendship that has been ruined, or it could be about a couple that become a couple that had been friends, and by becoming a couple, they ruin the friendship when they break up. We don't know. She has another song canceled in all caps, although that could be about the online feud with her and Donald Trump, where he tweets about her or posts about her on Truth Social. And there's other songs like The Fate of Ophelia, where people are like, but Ophelia was the name of Blake Lively in the movie Savages. And then there's Wish List. Like, could this possibly be about the wish lists and being a dragon? Or also Life of a Showgirl, which she happens to collaborate with Sabrina Carpenter. And Sabrina Carpenter happens to be someone that has worked with Wayfair and has been an outspoken buddy of Wayfair. She has said that she's only ever had great experiences with Wayfair. There's all kinds of little tiny nudges that people think this is going to have her talking about Blake. And if you know anything about Taylor, she drops little Easter eggs all over her albums and all over her internet. And she likes to send signs to her fans for them to figure out what she's talking about. And while she very well could address Blake Lively or some of the drama of Blake Lively on the album, it's hard to know, because this album was actually, she said, written and produced while she was still on tour. I don't know how much she actually recorded on tour. There's not a lot of information yet about that. She said that she was on tour with the Eras tour, and she wanted to sort of encapsulate what she experienced while she was on tour, sort of that everyday experience she was having. She said the songs are all very upbeat. Travis described it as high pop and bangers, all the bangers, and only 12 songs, not 13, no hidden tracks. During the podcast, Jason asked Taylor about unraveling kind of what it's like to be in the space that she's at, dealing with the online chatter and the rumors that circulate, and knowing that her relationship with Travis was under a very serious microscope, and she was on tour, and there was just all kinds of rumors. And at one point, people thought that the relationship was a PR stunt. And she's also faced some online discussions because Donald Trump has made posts about her on social Truth Social and has talked about how she's not hot anymore and that, she's not relevant. So the song Canceled, all in caps, could be about Donald Trump, seemingly because Donald likes to use all caps when he's talking about her on Truth Social. But she did speak about how some of her friends spend quite a bit of time sort of engaged only online and into criticism and dealing with the ecosphere of everything being about them and how it's unhealthy. And I thought this was an interesting way for her to discuss kind of the drama that's been going on around her when it comes to Blake Lively, because if you think about it, there's been a lot of online chatter of conversations that she's been brought into and rumors, and I think she was able to address it without saying it directly, which is a good non-answer, but also a good way to say what you want to say to someone without saying it to their face. So this is what she said.
Where a lot of people's identities and they get their feedback from that, right? Like, and I'm a real constructive criticism guy. Like, give me constructive criticism all day. I will take it.
Coach me up.
It'll fuel me.
She's an athlete, dude.
It's helpful, right? But I have so many like friends or acquaintances or people where like they'll see one comment they don't like,
right,
and it will ruin their day. It'll ruin their night.
I found the conversation around social media criticism and dealing with the criticism online was just a way for her to sort of say that she is above it and she doesn't spend a lot of time thinking about it and she doesn't get affected by it and she doesn't want to be invested in it because it doesn't. She said not all of it has anything to do with her. It's people that are just speculating about what's going on in her life, dissecting her relationships, and teasing through what they think is going on with her. And she said that she doesn't need to invest her time in that because, well, she has her own relationships and she has her own life and she doesn't need to care about what other people are saying online. And I thought it was interesting because when she said that she has friends that they will go into their comments and they will read them and then they will get so upset about one comment and then it will ruin their entire day and it's like all they're thinking about. And then they end up in sort of this like algorithm where everything that they're getting is either criticism or it is positive, right? And when that part came up, I was like, well, that could be about what's going on with Blake. Like, listen, if you want to get out of this echo chamber of everyone talking negative about you, just don't pay attention to it. Stop worrying about it. These people aren't worth it. It's not worth your time to care or consider. And Blake and Ryan have both said that they really do get so much feedback from the adoration, and it's like this insatiable need to be liked. And it's like a drug for Ryan. I mean, he has said that he has an insatiable need for outside validation. So for him, posting something on Instagram and getting that instant feedback obviously is something that he's looking for. And I felt like she kind of addressed the fact that if you live your life that way, it's not healthy. So she's saying it without saying it. Check this out.
Because everybody knows if they say one thing, but all of a sudden if they put Taylor Swift attached to it, it's going to get 1,000 more retweets and likes and hate comments or love comments or whatever. It's going to stir up tons of controversy.
Totally. No, not everyone is ever thinking about one person all the time at any point. It's just like if your algorithm is giving you either criticisms of yourself or adulation or praise, you're creating an ecosystem in which you're the centerpiece of the table. And I just don't think that's healthy. Like that's not the way I want to move through the world. So I do detach from the internet in a huge way.
And why I think that this is about Taylor and the drama that's happening with her and Blake and the lawsuit is because Jason says, everyone knows that if they put your name in something, they're going to get more likes, more retweets, more hate comments and love comments, right? And Taylor's PR routinely was calling all of this clickbait. Like they were using her name for attention, using her name for scandal, using her name for whatever it was. And she was trying to make clear that like she had nothing to do with it. She didn't have anything to do with the film. She was on her tour. She was traveling all over the world on a tour. She was recording an album at the same time. She was not thinking about Blake. She was not helping Blake. She was literally not involved outside of that one song that's in the movie. And for her to then sort of pivot and talk about how in the world of social media, if you start looking at content about you and your whole world revolves around what people are saying about you, it's not healthy. It's not healthy to always want positive feedback. It's not healthy to want to have criticism. And I get her point, and I can tell you why. There's a lot of channels that speak negatively about me, and I very rarely ever respond to any of those because it never does anything good for me, ever. And on top of it, why do I care what somebody online says about me? And what does it have to do with me? Because a lot of the times, what people are saying about me really doesn't have anything to do with me. It's kind of like what she was saying. It's people speculating about me, criticizing something I've done, not agreeing with something I've said. And that's fine. I mean, that's the beauty of the internet. Everyone is entitled to have an opinion. And it's very rare that you would get engaged with it. And I get engaged with it. And when I do, it never goes well for me. I mean, people will then say, well, Katie, you're attacking all of these people when they haven't noticed that for weeks or months or years, these people have been attacking me and that I'm just responding. But because I might have a bigger platform, then it looks like I'm picking on someone. So the best thing to do is just to try to ignore it as much as possible, which can be really, really hard, especially when people say things about you that are really awful, false, or defamatory. But at the end of the day, addressing it doesn't change what it is, and it won't end it because it will only fuel it. And so it's, a pattern that can get you stuck. And so if you keep addressing something and if you keep talking about it, it only perpetuates the situation and blows it out of proportion. And so I agree with her that it's better to just ignore what people say about you and live in an ecosystem and do what you need to do without the outside feedback and listening to people talk about you. I remember there was a point in time during a lawsuit years ago, and all these YouTubers were talking about me. And I would watch these videos about me, and it just felt so weird because people were talking about me as though they knew who I was and they didn't know me. Right. And I just remembered I don't want to listen to what people have to say about me. It makes me feel bad. It's weird. And who cares? And I think for her, Taylor, it's very similar. Like, Blake, who cares? Move on. You could have gotten past this. I think Megyn Kelly said something really astute in one of her podcasts when she was interviewing Brian Friedman. And by no means am I a huge fan of Megyn Kelly, but by no means am I a huge fan of Megyn Kelly, but she was accurate when she said part of being a celebrity is dealing with negative press. And you have to understand that there's going to be rounds and bouts of bad press when you're not favorable, where you might feel like you're getting canceled, where people start piling on you. And you have to just power through it and deal with it. And if you double down and sink into it, it only makes everything worse. And to have sort of a fit of what Lively is doing and claiming that all of this has been so harmful to her reputation really doesn't say anything other than she can't get over the negative press that she had. And instead of moving through it and moving on to the next project and moving on with her life, she had to double down and not accept that it was just bad press. And now she just has to blame Wayfair for the bad press. And there's nothing so far that's come out in any of the court records that have ever for a second shown to me that the smear campaign even happened. In fact, Jed Wallace shared some parts of Blake Lively's lawsuit, the amended complaint that was redacted. And if you recall, I had stated on my video like yesterday, I thought, I bet you they didn't even have to do this because I bet everything was already going out of Blake's favor at that point. I bet a lot of the controversy that was happening online was already being directed at Blake, and the comments were negative. And in one of the attachments to Wallace's motion to dismiss, he cites something at 293I, which is supposed to be like proof for Blake that they were talking about a smear campaign and it's trying to make him have jurisdiction, which it doesn't. So on August 6th, which was the same day of the getting ready for the premiere and the parties for the film, there was an exchange between Katie Case and Brianna Koslow, and they were wondering if Jed had already started working for Blake. And Brianna said, "Is Jed officially on the Justin stuff?" And Miss Case replied, "No clue. I shared all the info with him, but he said he wanted to talk to Melissa. But the comments are exactly our messaging, so I'm assuming yes." Miss Koslow replied, "Okay, so who would be sourcing with family on TikTok?" And Miss Case responded, "Yes, exactly why I think it's Jed." Later that day, she texted Miss Nathan and Miss Koslow and said, "Is Jed doing anything for Justin? I'm having Zoe monitor, but it's not the same, LOL." And Nathan responded, "Not yet. They've not signed him on yet." And then Katie said, "Ugh, I wish they'd get a move on it. All they care about is social right now, and we can't do anything about it." So what this tells me is that Jed wasn't working on this yet, but comments were showing up online that were exactly the same talking points of what they would have said had they been posting comments online. But Melissa says, he hasn't been on it yet. He hasn't done anything yet. And then on August 7th, they said Miss Case, Miss Koslow, and Miss Nathan texted while on a phone call with other parties, while Miss Nathan saying, "I can't with these people. I'm going to vomit." One message below in the chain, Miss Koslow remarked, "Then hire fucking Jed." And Miss Case replied, "Hire fucking Jed." Afterwards, on the same chain, Miss Case texted, "Jed said his team is ready to go, by the way." And Miss Nathan replied, "Great. LOL, let them go." And later that day, after wrapping up a Zoom with how to address the emerging story that Lively had raised concern about misconduct on the film, she circulated a text message that said next steps. But Jed did not start until August 9th. So if they were doing all of these things, right, and they were talking about what was going online, the online chatter was basically just a mirror to what they would have already said about her. I don't know how it ended up being the way that it was, that what they said they would focus on about Blake being a bully ends up being what the internet talks about, or they could have looked at what the internet was saying about Blake and created a narrative around that. I have no idea. But before Jed even got involved, it was happening. And it was happening even before August. Blake just doesn't understand the Colleen Hoover fan base and how adamantly against her they were. And as much as I don't like Blake Lively, I agree that sometimes the piling on that can happen or during times when someone's getting canceled can feel excessive. But I think for some people, they felt so insulted by what she was doing that it got such a visceral reaction from people that were impacted by domestic violence. So if you are Blake, the best thing you could have done in that situation would be to acknowledge the failures of your marketing, admit and change direction and recalibrate what you're going to say about the film and how you're going to address the victims. Instead of doing an Instagram post with a phone number for the national hotline about women being abused, make a video, say it in an interview, but don't go on interviews and claim that, this is not a film about domestic violence, because that was what was getting people all riled up. And for Taylor, I mean, I think it's safe to say that if any recording was happening during the time any of this was going down, there will be, I'm sure, lines here and there that could tie back to Blake. Is there going to be a full diss track? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know when she actually recorded this. Some of the stuff about Donald Trump happened just this year. So if she has a song addressing issues with Trump, she could have recorded just this year. Hard to know. I mean, I don't think she recorded the whole album while she was on tour. I just think she might have written some of the songs while on tour. And maybe she recalibrated some of those songs and rewrote them after tour. But even Travis said that he learned very quickly after the end of the Airs tour, which was in December. That's the same time Blake filed her lawsuit. It's the same time Taylor's name got dragged into it. And Travis said he had to turn off comments at that point because had to stop paying attention to comments because it wasn't healthy. And it was obvious that he was annoyed by it. It was obvious he wanted to say more. It was obvious he had things to say about Blake and Ryan, but he didn't. And I just think that what Taylor is telling Blake and Ryan is like, it's not all about you guys. What you're doing is only making things worse. And you need to move on and just deal with what your job is, which is creating art, making films, and taking care of your fans and entertaining them and not getting mixed up in all of this. So I'll be eagerly waiting to see what, if any, nuggets, Easter eggs are dropped in her songs, if any of them could be about Blake. I don't know about Ruin the Friendship, if it'll be a diss track, but I don't know. It will be interesting because she talks about everything in her life, all the good and all the bad. And when she's had feuds with other friends, it has absolutely shown up in her lyrics. So I do not expect this to be any different. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.